Hello and welcome to yet another video. This is the fourth episode in which Namikaze Naruto was an Anbu captain before the Hokage, Orochimaru, killed him with the Mangekyo Sharingan. He has now been sent to a new world, where he hopes to prevent a similar fate from befalling Konoha. Please like and subscribe to show your support. Let's get the show started. Namikaze rested against the back of the cave and watched the brown-haired Chunin tied up in a chair and unconscious. The two of them were housed in a cave. Anko located the cave the evening Team 7 and Team Namikaze arrived in Wave. It was located a mile outside town deep in a forest. The entrance was under genjutsu to ward off the curious and uninvited. Now, it was the morning of the second full day in Wave. This time, it was Namikaze's turn to interrogate the prisoner. Since the blonde jounin didn't have the proper materials he usually used in interrogation, he would have to improvise. The first thing he did was observe the ninja. The man was dressed in a white coat, long black pants and some green fingerless gloves. Over his coat he had his Chunin vest. His hair was a brownish-red color, and he had a light skin tone. The Chunin had some special equipment, consisting of several metal rods which fitted inside a metal backpack along each side. The Chunin groaned and began fighting his restraints. His hands and feet were tied with a special chakra-absorbing wire, and his body with strong rope. No rope escape technique would work. There were no blindfolds this time. Namikaze spoke softly, "Easy man. You better not try anything. I'm your best chance of getting out alive. My partner would kill you on a whim, so just relax." To Namikaze's great surprise, the Chunin did as he was told. The ninja began muttering something darkly, which prompted Namikaze to move closer, but still not too close. The Chunin was without a weapon, but not defenseless. Namikaze said, "What was that? I didn't catch it." The Chunin frowned, "That partner of yours is insane, using ricocheting kunai to catch me off guard like that. Who the hell are you anyway?" Namikaze moved his fingers back and forth, reproaching him, You don't ask the questions, I do. Let's begin. What's your name?" The ninja bit his lip, and then replied, "Jiro Kazahana." Something sounded familiar in his name. He looked at the man's headband again. There were 4 circles, much in the same way snowflakes may fall in the winter. Then it hit him, "Kazahana? Wait, you're from the land of snow?" Jiro looked at him with no small amounts of surprise, and then his eyes dulled a bit. There was a small amount of anger. Namikaze continued elaborating, "Are you related to Dodo Kazahana?" The Chunin averted his gaze in frustration at the association. "He's my bastard brother, and the usurper of the country. Killed the ruler and sent Princess Fujikaze into hiding. I heard she took up residence in Konoha. Is she still alive?" Memories came back to Namikaze, of killing Doto with a wind blade. It wasn't long after the Chunin exams, and the sound/grass/sand invasion. He shifted through those memories, and recalled she was an actor at this time. Namikaze frowned. Doto was a despicable man, as he killed hundreds of innocent civilians under his terrible rule. Was his brother any different? He decided to test him. He shook his head sadly. "She died months ago in a bandit raid. Konoha ninjas can only respond so fast. Her burnt corpse was found with the shattered remains of a crystal necklace. The fire died in Jiro's eyes. His breath quickened and he whimpered, No. No, no, no. She was so very kind to me. My brother was ruthless, and disregarded everyone in my family. I joined the ninja academy to escape the bastard and become her future bodyguard, but now..." Tears began streaming down his cheeks. Namikaze smirked. The snow ninja had passed the first of his tests. His tone changed, "I lied. The Chunin didn't notice at first that Namikaze had said anything, and then stopped crying. What? I lied. I know your brother from stories from my senpai who was in snow, Kakashi. The princess is very much alive and well. I had to test you to see if you were an enemy, or an ally. The snow ninja sat in shock, and then sputtered, Then you know where she is? The fire returned to his eyes. Namikaze shook his head calmly, No, but I guarantee you that she lives. I'll tell you no more for now. The next question, what do you know about Gato? Jiro's expression changed at his name. There was a severe distaste in how he sat. He's a bastard. I don't trust him in the slightest. I heard that he hires anyone to do his dirty work, and would betray them as fast as he would hire them. We're expendable, the ninja under his command. I gave consideration to killing him myself, but the hunters would be on my tail, and the tails of every missing nin under his employ. Even if I succeeded, the others would kill me for eliminating such an excellent, safe haven. Namikaze nodded, getting some good information. He asked, Do you know where he's located right now? No. It's unfortunate, but the little bastard moves from safe house to safe house on a rotating schedule. It might be months before he returns to the safe house I met him at. However, some of the jounin in his employ might know, there's a man named Zabuza, one of the 7 shinobi swordsmen of the mist, he won't do. We killed him a couple days back as he tried to kill our Gato bait, Namikaze lied. He wanted to get to Gato before Zabuza recovered. Going after the demon of the mist would be slightly easier, but would totally unravel his plan. Jiro looked intrigued at this, but Namikaze didn't regale him the story. The Snow Chunin thought for a second, and then replied, Well, Zabuza did have a subordinate, but that kid is probably dead as well if you killed Zabuza. Say, what happened to my partner? Dead. My partner killed him. Good riddance, he was a scumbag, murdered some decent people for fun. Oh? And aren't you a scumbag as well, missing nin Jiro? Jiro's eyes turned away in shame at his own village. There's a difference between betraying the village and the village betraying me. I fall into the latter class. I voiced my opinion against my brother in his presence. Next thing I know, he branded me a traitor to the daimyo and snow country. I had to flee before the hunter nin would get me. I just fell into Gato's hands. Mostly guarded his warehouses of thugs, but I guess that's at an end as well. Namikaze coughed, let's get back on topic. Who might know where Gato is? Well, there's a Kumo Kunoichi under his employ as well. Mostly she's for assassinating people in beds, but I heard she was a big-shot ninja before turning traitor. The Lightning Monarch, Akane Reiku. She might know, but she's fairly loyal to Gato. She won't give up information easy. Leave that to me. Jiro looked at him uncomfortably for a minute. Namikaze decided to wrap things up with this question, where is she located? The Snow Chunin squirmed in his bindings, and Namikaze got uneasy. Jiro muttered, I know I shouldn't be asking for favors, but once you finish with me, you might just kill me and turn my head in for the bounty. I propose a deal. Namikaze's head turned to the ninja so fast, Jiro thought he might break his neck. The blonde jounin's voice betrayed surprise, Excuse me. Let's take a look at this scenario. You're sitting in a chair with ropes and wires restraining you. We are the ones in the position of power here. He held a kunai to the man's throat hard enough to draw blood from his neck, and don't you forget it. The snow ninja smirked, but I know where her hideout is and you don't. If you try to torture the info out of me, I'll bite my tongue, and you'll be on your own. Good luck finding Gato then. Namikaze glared at the captive, but couldn't refute what he said. He removed the kunai and growled, What are your terms? Not much. I'd like asylum in Konoha until such time as I am reunited with my princess, Yuki. After that? I don't know. But that's my offer. Take it or leave it. Namikaze bit his tongue, this time, dissatisfied with the terms. He muttered, I'll talk it over with Anko. Wave Forest, near Reiku's villa, all three ninja were standing a few feet apart from one another on top of a wooded hill. There was an opening in the trees, allowing them to see for miles across the forest. Most of the area was shrouded in mist, but the visibility was far enough that they could see a villa 2 miles away. Jiro lowered his binoculars and declared, that's her camp right there. She's a bit eccentric, after running from Kyumo hunters. I'm fairly lucky after all, only having to avoid hunters from snow, but Anko smacked the back of his head and hissed, stop rambling. You've been doing nothing but that since we left. Remind me again, pervert, why didn't we just kill him? Namikaze pouted playfully, because, I promised you the recipe for the cocktail on the senbons I used on you, a week's worth of dango, sake, and the money for the mission as hazard pay for keeping him alive. The Jounin was willing to do anything to make sure Haku lived this time around. Anko smiled sweetly, that's right. I plan on going all out when we get back too. Namikaze whispered to himself, it's all for Haku's sake, it's all for Haku's sake, it's all for. Jiro's voice cut through Namikaze's monologue, that hurt. Come to think of it, I still owe you for sticking a kunai in my shoulder. Anko released a small amount of killer intent, just about enough to smother a civilian. She muttered, if you don't stop whining, I'll finish the job. Now, what do we have in terms of defenses? The Snow Chunin could suddenly breathe, as Anko repressed her murderous chakra. After a couple seconds, he continued, Akane has the entire forest region booby-trapped. Think of any type trap you can make, and she's got it. That woman's even got a few traps no one has ever heard of. She's also got Gato's guards investigating the place all the time. Namikaze looked at him with an annoyed face, well then, why are we here if she's so well guarded? Furthermore, we've got to get the information out of her afterwards. Jiro looked sheepish, well, I never said it would be easy. Hey. Don't kill me. I'd rather live to see the princess return to snow, than be honored as a martyr. Namikaze had drawn a kunai and lunged at the snow ninja, only to be held back by Anko. Anko wanted to be paid, and one of the conditions of payment was for the snow ninja to survive. She's put up with his attitude too long for anything else. Namikaze, how about you try to get through the defenses with a shadow clone? Namikaze muttered how he was going to kill the ninja as his hands formed the cross-hand sign. A second Namikaze appeared and sprinted into the forest. Moments later, Namikaze winced as the clone exploded into smoke after triggering a particularly deadly trap which speared the target with several sharpened branches. Minutes passed as the blonde Jounin sent clone after clone, only to have them die in progressively more gruesome ways. Explosive tags, kunai, shuriken, swords, pitfall traps, rolling log traps, swinging log traps, makabashi spikes, spring traps, the list went on, getting slowly more and more elaborate and murderous in nature. No matter how any of Namikaze's clones maneuvered, they always fell victim to one trap after another. The upper portion was trapped with explosives and leg traps while the lower section with spring traps, spikes, and some of the deadliest pit traps known to man. Finally, after having about a dozen clones have their head lobbed off by various demon wind shuriken traps, Namikaze shouted, enough. This is ridiculous. How many traps can one woman have? I've been sending them almost in a straight line through the forest, and I haven't yet made it halfway. By the time we make it through the forest, she'll either be alerted to our presence, or we'll be too tired to fight her. The blonde Jounin threw up his arms and walked away. Anko and Jiro watched him go, and then looked into Wave Zone, Forest of Death. Jiro muttered, well, we could always attack via the main road into the clearing. It's well guarded, but it's probably safer than the forest. This time, Anko decked him, why the hell didn't you say so sooner? We wasted a good hour doing all this for nothing. The Chunin slammed into the ground and slid several feet through the dirt. He slowly picked himself up and dusted himself off. The road to Reiku's villa was much better guarded than the warehouse for sure. There were a few sentries out in the field which reported back to the building several times a day. Back in the villa, there was several other guards present. Some would call a trip to Akane's a vacation. No one would be stupid enough to attack. Even if they defeated the traps and security, they would have to deal with the Lightning Monarch, a jounin skilled enough to rival one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. She had sensed someone trying to penetrate her security, with the foreign chakra. She growled to herself and walked outside to meet the intruders when they arrived. The sentries were on their way back to the villa when they heard shouting down the road. They raced down the road just in time to see Jiro Kazahana being carried down the road by 2 thugs. Jiro was often stationed here, and was only called out for the special purpose of guarding Gato's army of thugs. They sprinted to the 2 and started asking questions. Jiro appeared unconscious, and they moved to enter the villa. Several minutes later, they arrived to see Akane smirking at the 5. She had medium brown hair tied into a ponytail on the back. On the front, her fringe dipped low enough to partially cover one eye, and her eyes were cold as ice. Several guards were flanking her on both sides. She spoke with a feral tone. "I must admit, I'm impressed you took down my sentries that easily, but you won't find the rest of my men as easy as that." The 2 sentries looked at her confused, when suddenly electricity shot through their veins. In a second, they were out. The electricity originated from Jiro's special lightning tags he designed for personal use. Explosive tags were widespread and the weapon of choice for assault, but these were used for non-lethal incapacitation of the enemy. Jiro stood up straight and smiled. "Hello Akane. I won't dignify a traitor with a response. Why don't the other 2 of you introduce yourselves?" The 2 thugs exploded into smoke, revealing Namikaze and Anko. Anko growled at the Lightning Monarch, while Namikaze looked angry. Akane's cold attitude became bemused. "What's his problem?" Namikaze shouted, "Do you have any idea what it's like to be crushed, skewered, blown up and decapitated a dozen times over? What the hell is wrong with you, you nut job?" A strange coughing sound echoed behind the blonde jounin. He didn't look, but knew that it was Anko. And that she was laughing at him. Jiro spoke up again. "Listen Akane-kan, we only want Gato's location. Tell us where he's at, and we'll leave you be." Akane looked at Jiro with an odd expression, something of a mix of contempt and sadness. "I will die before I give that information to you. It's too bad Jiro Kazahana-san. You were a lot nicer than the other bandits and missing Nin. Pity you had to betray Gato. Kill them, boys." The 10 guards rushed at the 3 ninja. Jiro's face became resigned, as he knew what he must do. Back at the warehouse, the Snow Chunin was caught off guard against Anko, severely underestimating her. This time he knew he would need all the help he could get, as he was facing an rank jounin with 2 rank jounin and a high-level chunin. He reached behind him and withdrew 4 metal rods, 2 in each hand, from his backpack. His hands quickly depressed the buttons on them, causing metal spikes to extend from each rod. Jiro threw them between the advancing guards, and they stuck into the ground amongst the attackers. None of the spikes hit the targets, which emboldened the bandits. The closest one pulled out a sword and took a swing at the chunin. However, Namikaze's elbow slammed into his stomach, stopping him in his tracks. A moment later, 2 senbon, courtesy of Anko, pierced the bandit's neck, putting him in a death-like state. Meanwhile, Jiro had formed several hand signs, shouting, "Raitun, Denkuhara no Jutsu, lightning field technique." He held both hands forward, which released a stream of lightning. They struck the metal rods, and then they discharged in every direction, striking anyone within range. However, the lightning heading for Anko and Namikaze suddenly stopped, and changed directions, like something was repelling it. Lightning also shot at Akane, but like with Namikaze's team, the lightning changed direction suddenly, and flew over her head. She gave a cold smile. Well done, Jiro, you've got some skill to master that attack. But remember, I was the one who taught it to you. Did you really think that one would faze me, let alone stop me? One, Jiro smiled back at her. I've learned some other new tricks since you took me under your wing, my queen. Let me show you just an example. Anbu Naruto, please stand back. He moved to the closest rod, placed his hand over it, and said, Right-on, Shindu Wamu no Jutsu, shock worm technique. 2. Chakra discharged into the ground. But nothing happened. Akane just chuckled, not bad. Might have worked, if I wasn't channeling some chakra into the soil. It acted as a lightning rod, and I filtered the technique in every direction, dispersing it completely. The Snow Chunin's forehead started sweating a bit. He pulled out 5 new rods with each hand, and threw them all at the monarch. She ducked, sidestepped and weaved her way through each one. Each rod struck in a different place, completely surrounding her. He formed several new hand signs and shouted, Right-on, Tsubame Hadu no Jutsu, swallow surge technique. Once again, lightning shot out of his hand, but this time forming into a swallow, and shot at Akane. The lightning monarch didn't move again, but used whatever technique she had been using previously to deflect the attack. The lightning bird struck one of the rods, causing it to turn bright yellow. Akane looked at him with pity. Is that all? Cheap tricks can never hope to defeat me. Time to end this. I'll show you a true lightning technique. So much lightning began surrounding her that she practically started glowing. At this, however, Jiro formed a new set of hand signs, Right-on, Denku Shuhiki, lightning barrier trap. Each of the 14 poles around the monarch started glowing. Lightning chakra dissipated from her body and flew towards the rods, each one absorbing an even amount of chakra. Akane looked surprised as her technique quickly dissipated. Jiro cocked his head to one side and said smugly, I knew you'd start with that technique, and that you'd dodge each of my attacks. Which is why I used this, my ultimate technique, lightning barrier trap. There's no escaping it. It needs either a huge amount of chakra from me to set up, or a small amount of chakra evenly distributed amongst the rods combined with my foe's lightning chakra. I used your own lightning chakra against you. If you try running, each rod is charged now with enough chakra to bring down a mid-sized summon. He changed a Han sign and said, Pierce. On command, several beams of lightning chakra shot out from each pillar, striking Akane from each side. Jiro smirked, Don't worry, there's not enough to kill you, but easily enough to put you down for a while. It's too bad, because I rather like you. But, you made your choice. Namikaze watched the smoking remains with a whistle, not bad at all. I'd have some trouble blocking that. However, I believe this has only just begun. The body of the lightning monarch began moving. Anbu and Namikaze took a low stance, preparing for what would inevitably come next. Namikaze muttered, Anbu quickly replied as she dashed forward, right. Lightning coursed through the ground from where the Akane lay towards Jiro. The Chunin didn't have enough time to figure out what happened as Anbu violently shoved him out of the way and leaped clear herself. Lightning exploded like a pillar to the heavens from the ground where he stood just an instant before. Akane's cold voice rose, You've gotten a lot better, Jiro. Had I not transformed my jutsu into lightning armor, I certainly would have fallen back there. Lucky you have good teammates, or else that attack would have vaporized you. Be grateful, because now you'll have to suffer slowly and painfully as I wipe them out first. Namikaze's face contorted in annoyance, You know, you're starting to tick me off. How about if I finish you right now? In an instant, he used Kaze Shuunpa to move behind the woman, and chopped the back of her neck. Immediately, Namikaze knew something was wrong. The moment he touched her neck, he felt ecstatic. shock more powerful than any he had ever felt before. The woman suddenly turned into pure lightning, a lightning clone. Oh crap! Lightning shot through his veins, sending him into violent convulsions. The lightning monarch suddenly appeared behind him with one of Jiro's electric rods in hand. She formed two hand signs and said, Raitun, Reiku Katana, lightning sword. Electricity shot through the spiked end, forming into a yellow blade. Jiro shouted, Move Namikaze. The blonde jounin tried to move, but found his body unresponsive. The woman brought the blade in a downward arc, which threatened to bisect him across his stomach area. A wave of senbon flew through the air, causing Akane to shift her attention slightly. The first one missed, but she sensed something foul enter her nose as they passed her by. The rest didn't miss, but she had used kawarimi with a wooden log. Namikaze relaxed as Anko and Jiro rushed forward. He spat, This isn't working. I can't move very well. Hold her off for a few minutes while I discharge the electricity that's invaded my chakra coils. Akane reappeared several feet away, still clutching the metal rod sword. So, you've poisoned all your senbon. That must mean you're Yamakagashi Anko. Your reputation precedes you here. Before you left the field, you were one of the best hunters in Konoha. You wore the snake mask in your hunt for Orochimaru and were forced to leave the hunters over issues with your partners. Anko glared, How did you know about my hunter years? Few even in Konoha knew of it. I had an inside source. Before Gato, he employed me for a bit. Namikaze jumped to a conclusion, So, you worked for the snake bastard himself, Orochimaru? Akane became amused, Oh, no, 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 no. I worked for someone else. Pity that information will have to die with me as well. Why not? Might as well tell a couple dead people. He tried playing on her overconfidence. She looked disappointed, It's not that I won't, I can't. He was a right bastard to work for, but even more overcautious than I am. Enough talk. Raitun, Raikuja no Mai, Dance of the Lightning Monarch. Clouds began rolling in from every direction. Lightning burst from the blackened masses in all directions, causing everyone's hair to stand on end. Several bolts came down at the three, but then changed directions and were absorbed by a number of Jiro's surviving rods. Akane said, It's useless. Suddenly, they all exploded, one after another. The lightning once again streamed at Namikaze's team. Anko dodged one that struck to her left by a couple feet. Jiro kept reflecting the attacks away from Namikaze with his lightning jutsus. But then Anko got too close to the rest of the team, causing all the lightning to concentrate in one place. It all struck with a massive force in one area, causing a huge explosion. Akane sent another wave of electricity crashing down on them, and then dispelled her technique. As the smoke cleared, Namikaze's team was nowhere to be seen. She began to return to the house when several massive snake summons broke through the ground around her. They struck in unison, biting into the legs, midsection and head. She turned into lightning, which shot into the sky, and then struck at one of the few remaining lightning rods scattered around the battlefield. The lightning formed into Akane once again. Another snake broke from the ground several feet away, issuing forth Anko. The missing Nin frowned, You must be truly an exceptional shinobi to force me to use that technique. I designed it after the fourth Hokage's Hirashin no Jutsu, allowing me to move anywhere in the battlefield in an instant. The first four snake summons burrowed through the ground once again, but this time the element of surprise was not with them. Akane whipped her hands through several hand signs as she flashed from one lightning rod to another to dodge Anko's thrown weapons, Raitun, Sudatiku no Hara no Jutsu, static field technique. Akane stopped suddenly, allowing the snakes to catch up to her. The instant they burst through the ground, several bolts of lightning struck from the sky, severely burning each snake in the process. Anko quickly dispelled summons rather than be party to their deaths. Akane's bored eyes turned to Anko once again. The static field jutsu covers the ground with my lightning-coated chakra. When something broke the ground, the chakra clung to the summons. When that happened, I called lightning down from the sky. The snakes acted as lightning rods. A mass of chakra began forming in her hands, as she molded it into a spear. Anko tried to move her feet, but found them firmly stuck to the ground. Akane allowed herself a small grin. Sorry, but you're not going anywhere. The static field can also cause the bonds between your chakra and mine to become polar opposites, in other words, attracted. 3. So, where are your teammates, or are you the only survivor? Anko gave her most defiant sneer. I stayed behind so that they could escape. Noble and misguided to the end, a true tree hugger after all. Goodbye, Yamakagashi. The spear came hurtling through the air. Another kunai shot from Anko's sleeves as she intended to cut off her sandals to escape, but she wouldn't make it in time. In her mind, she calmly resigned herself to death. Suddenly, Namikaze burst through the ground right in front of the attack, and slashed the spear in two. The bisected spear struck on either side of Anko. For the first time since the battle began, Akane actually looked surprised for a second, and then her eyes narrowed. How the hell did you do that? And for that matter, how are you able to stand right now? Namikaze held both hands forward. In them, a pair of black trench knives were on his hands. These blades were coated in a material that absorbs chakra. I used my chakra to form a blade to sever the attack in two. I don't use them very often, as I prefer my sword, but... He let the rest hang and looked down at the weapons. They once belonged to Asuma, given to him by Shikamaru for safekeeping as he investigated the Konoha disappearances. Now, they were his alternate weapon. Then, Namikaze smirked. As for being able to move, Jiro used his lightning jutsu to absorb your chakra from my body. Without the electricity, my body could move freely once again. The two jounin raced forward. Akane threw the first punch, which Namikaze dodged to the right. He spun along with the dodge, bringing his right blade in a downward overhead slash. His wrist connected with her foot. The hand shot backwards as he brought his other weapon around, slashing at Akane's side. Akane blocked that one with her hand and slammed her other hand into his midsection. The shadow clone exploded into smoke. Namikaze once again appeared behind her, slamming his hand towards the back of her neck, attempting to end the fight. Akane was slightly faster once again, as she turned to lightning and flashed to one of the rods. The Monarch pulled herself together. She formed a plan where she gathered each of the remaining lightning rods together. From there, she'd throw them across the battlefield next to Namikaze. Then, she'd use her lightning rod technique to take him down. She began forming the hand signs when Namikaze vanished, slicing apart one of the lightning rods. Don't even think of it. I saw your technique, you won't be able to use that one again. He flashed his knives at her menacingly. She was quickly becoming annoyed. She had already used a lot of her chakra defeating both Jiro and Anko, and now had to face this irritating jerk when he was still at mostly full strength. For a moment, she considered retreating before realizing Namikaze made a fatal mistake. She didn't need the lightning rods to kill Namikaze. The lightning was already there, with the effect of the static field jutsu. All that had to be done was manipulate the chakra a bit. She could only travel in a straight line at him, but he would never expect it. She formed the same hand signs for the lightning technique, to which Namikaze sighed, "It's useless. I'll just destroy every lightning rod left." Akane ignored him and concentrated. She mixed a couple subtle hand signs in to concentrate the electricity behind the blonde jounin. Finally, she was done. She turned into lightning and shot forward at an instable speed. Suddenly, she appeared behind him, with a smirk on her face. Seconds passed, but suddenly both of Akane's arms fell off. She began screaming in pain as Namikaze cleaned off his blades and returned them to the pouches on his hips. I knew all along you'd use your own body in lightning form to pierce mine. So, I went along with your plan, trapping you. A ninja must be ready for anything. You think your jutsu is anything like my brother's? Your jutsu, though impressive, is slower than Minato's Hiration. Heck, my Kaze Shuinpa is slower than his, but probably faster than yours. It is nothing compared to the real Hiration no Jutsu. Namikaze nodded at Anko. The snake Kunoichi quickly peppered the monarch with senbon dipped in a powerful sedative. Green-colored chakra encompassed Reiku's bloodied stumps which once had arms attached to them. Regardless of how often Jiro tried, Anko couldn't be convinced to reattach the lightning monarch's arms. Even if Anko did, she only had limited training in medical ninjutsu anyway, but she still managed to stabilize the foul-tempered missing ninja. While Anko worked on Akane, Jiro kept watch of the road, as it wouldn't do to be ambushed by one of Gato's relief contingents. Namikaze, meanwhile, considered what to do with the remaining bandits. He abhorred killing people in cold blood, however, he couldn't just let the bandits escape to rejoin Gato. Even if they didn't rejoin the business tycoon, the bandits might end up killing other leaf ninja or civilians somewhere down the road. In the end, he resolved to leave them there after sealing off the main road. After the battle, he could return to see if there were any survivors and deal with them then. The villa was abruptly burned to the ground before Team Namikaze left with the monarch in tow. It would be hours before Gato's relief groups arrived, only to find a minefield of recently set up traps and massive cut-down trees along the road. Day 4, Wave Forest. Jiro was sitting outside the cave entrance, working on repairing his metal rods he had lost in his previous battle. His equipment wasn't being very cooperative in his efforts. He set up one of the repaired rods in an opening and sent some chakra into it. At about 30% of usual capacity, the rod exploded. Jiro sighed and began gathering the pieces. Suddenly, he felt something was behind him, and turned with a kunai sliding down his sleeve. However, nothing was there. He looked up and saw no one. The Chunin returned the kunai, finished gathering the pieces, and walked away. Several meters away, hidden deep within the leaves, 3 heavily cloaked men with white masks watched intently. They slowly followed the snow ninja at a safe distance as he approached the Genjutsu hidden cave. Day 6, near the cave entrance, Namikaze was fuming. His team had managed to waste 4 days trying to get the damn monarch to talk. She was stubborn, no matter what torture Anko put her through, they just couldn't get her to talk. Jiro admitted he might have underestimated her resilience to Genjutsu interrogation techniques and physical torture. There was just no way they could get her to talk. Time was beginning to run out. Zabuza would probably be in good enough shape to fight by tomorrow. Namikaze needed to kill Gato, and fast. He had been doing some explorations into the jungle, but never came across any enemies. He also posed as Tazuna a couple times trying to get Gato's men to attack. All attempts to lure them out ended in failure. Suddenly, a kunai slammed against the rocks. Namikaze, already forming several hand signs, turned to the kunai. The kunai had a note attached. He plucked it from the wall and began reading it. If you are reading this, I assume this is the team that killed off the lightning monarch, Akane Reiku. My name is Gato, and I'd like to hire you for a special commission outside the records of the village. Meet me at the edge of the shore where you destroyed the warehouse. Come alone without your teammates or else the deal is off. Namikaze smirked to himself, either Gato is an idiot, or else this is a trap. Should be interesting either way. Near the ruins of the warehouse, the courier rested against the edge of the building. The area was calm, peaceful. It was a stark contrast to the fact that, just a couple of days ago, several of Gato's thugs were killed in a massive explosion. Ironically, the ninja who caused the destruction was on his or her way right now to meet with him. The courier was one of Gato's contacts in the village, informing him of any interesting development for a price. It was through him that Gato found out that Tazuna was building a bridge to the mainland. He only cared about the money, not about who lived or died. His musings ended suddenly when a blonde jounin materialized out of the mist. The man gave an evil grin and thought, time to earn my keep. Are you the leader of the team who killed Zabuza and Akane Reiku? Zabuza's dead? I was under the impression he was still alive. The little rat of a man frowned. You can't be fooled that easily, can you? No, Zabuza's alive. Anyway, I'm the courier sent to give you this. He held up a videotape. Namikaze took it from his hand, and then held a kunai to his throat. Thanks. Now, where's Gato? The rat's eyes widened in shock. His mouth moved fast. Gato's a busy man. He has a business to run, so he couldn't meet Yurk. Namikaze pressed the blade harder to the man's throat, causing a bit of blood to start coming out. Don't waste my time, team. I want to talk to Gato personally today, or else your life's forfeit. Suddenly, an image of Gato flickered into existence. Namikaze retracted the blade from the rat's throat and turned to face the man. Is the jutsu working? Gato said to someone a distance away. Whoever it was must have confirmed it was, because Gato continued speaking. So you are the bastard who's destroyed 2 of my safe houses and furthermore killed Akane Reiku. Namikaze grinned widely. Well, you know, it's not easy when I'm hunting down a target for my village. Some of your employees have been causing all sorts of problems for us, and we needed to get rid of them. Gato nodded thoughtfully. I should be thanking you. I've been seeking a way to get rid of that annoyance, Akane, for over a year now. She hasn't been earning her keep, but she's too strong to kill. My bandits in that region were too loyal to her anyway. Nice to know I'm of use. How are you doing that? The short man gave a foul smirk. I have a ninja here who knows an illusionary technique which allows for long-distance communication. Anyway, the details for the commission are on the tape, along with a few words of praise from myself. Namikaze gave a foul smile of his own. Nice to know. But I have a better plan. How about I kill you and extract the money from your molding corpse, bastard? The short man shifted uneasily, almost as if he could sense the murderous intent which was now leaking out of Namikaze's tenketsu. The blonde jounin glanced around for a mere second and muttered, Fuinjutsu user. He threw 2 kunai at different trees and then another at the foot of Gato. Attached to each one, explosive tags began burning. Namikaze smirked and spoke in an icy tone, I'm coming for you. A second later, all 3 exploded, destroying the seals that were written on the ground and trees. Gato's shock image faded from existence. The blonde jounin turned to walk away when the reality of the situation struck him. He sighed and muttered, oh crap. Immediately, he began running as fast as he could. Enko sat at the entrance to the cave, waiting for Naruto to return. The pervert had been gone for hours, and she was starting to get a bit worried. Akane had passed out once again after the latest session of torture. Jiro followed her out, watching her posture change as she looked almost longingly out of the cave. He smirked, Enko-san, I have a question. Enko didn't reply, as she gazed into the forest. Jiro thought that meant he could ask, you like Namikaze-san, don't you? Right away, the Snow Chunin knew he had said something that could cost him his life. Murderous chakra, more intense than anything he ever felt from her before, exploded out as she turned to look at him. Her eyes had become like a demon. Jiro leaned against the cave entrance to prevent himself from falling under the pressure, but it still felt like he had gained several 100 pounds. Enko screamed, why the hell would I care about that perverted blonde idiot? He's been nothing but trouble, taunting me, questioning my skills, stealing my prey and forcing me to save your irritating ass. The snake Kunoichi grabbed him by his Chunin vest, pulled him close and whispered in a hissing tone, if you ever suggest to me such a ridiculous thing ever again, I'll gut you alive and leave you in the darkest portion of the forest of death as your life slowly bleeds out. The woman threw him down and stomped off into the forest. Jiro just picked himself up and dusted himself off. His smirk never faltered the whole time. Even now, I'll take that as a yes. Suddenly, pain shot up his foot at something bit down hard on it. He bent over and saw a snake with 4 lines running down from tail to mouth. He frowned, realizing that it was probably one of Anko's summons. Jiro said, Anko. Anko. Anko went several feet into the forest, where she could scream in fury without anyone running to see. What was going on? Several minutes later, her voice was hoarse, so she formed a couple quick hand signs and healed her vocal cords. If she could see herself in a mirror, her face would be red. Stupid Namikaze, Anko thought. He had to go off by himself to meet Gato. I wanted to go as well, but he used that instant movement jutsu of his before I could find out the location. I wanted to have a part in it as well, but... Her newest partner arrived, disrupting her train of thought. Anko, did you happen to leave behind one of your snake summons with orders to bite me? Anko kept a straight, serious face as she replied, I decided I'm tired of dealing with your annoying attitude. You've got a few minutes to live. Enjoy it while it lasts. Jiro's face paled. He spoke in a panicked tone, you know. Anko. I was just kidding. Come on, that's not a good reason to just randomly kill your teammate. She spoke in a solemn tone, I've killed people for less. Maybe you'll learn your lesson this time around. The Snow Chunin pleaded with her over the next couple minutes, but she remained set in her desire to let him die. Finally, when he was about to attack her in desperation, he realized that nothing had happened. He was feeling fine, if only a little bit of pain. His eyes turned to meet hers and saw a large amount of mirth there. His mouth drooped into a frown and eyes began glaring as Anko laughed to herself. It was in this moment that Namikaze appeared in front of the both of them. He said, Ankakan, Jiro-san, I'm glad you both are all right. We need to evacuate. Anko turned to glare at the blonde jounin, which he didn't take notice. She growled, why should we do that? His eyes showed a small amount of fear as he said, Gato's got a Fuinjutsu master, and he has had hours to prepare this battlefield. This time, it was Anko's turn to pale. She turned to the cave and sped away. Jiro looked confused, huh? What's so special about a Fuinjutsu master? And why do we need to abandon the cave? Namikaze snorted a laugh and filled him in, remembering one of Orochimaru's lectures on the various ninjas in the world, a Fuinjutsu master isn't an opponent to be taken lightly. In and of itself, the ninja is nothing special. A well-balanced ninja can easily take most of them on. However, one must never let them choose the field of battle. If they do, facing them would be virtual suicide. Even the weakest Fuinjutsu specialists can cripple you without you knowing what happened. Jiro looked somewhat surprised at the explanation. Realizing the wisdom in a tactical retreat, the two ninja sprinted towards the cave to continue helping Anko leave. Location unknown, Gato's current safe house. Rewrite before posting. A dark-skinned ninja watched calmly from the cliff overlooking the cave clearing. 3 ninja squirmed around, preparing to abandon the cave. There was a cigarette jutting out of the side of his mouth. He breathed in deeply, and then breathed out. A cloud of smoke rose into the air. On the side of his forehead, a mist headband hung loosely with a line cut deeply into the metal right through the center. He said, looks like Blondie's abandoning the cave. Smart man. Pity, I've already set up the next field of battle. They'll end up there, one way or another. He pulled himself up from his sitting position. Gato was standing off to the ninja's side, watching the frantic actions of the Leaf Ninja team. Actually, Gato was another of the Black Ninja's illusions. The image glared at the ninja, aren't you going to ambush them right now? You could do it. I've seen you in action. They would never stand a chance against you. The missing nin looked at the diminutive businessman with a broken arm and stated plainly, my father always said, he who controls the battlefield controls how the battle flows. Though I would have the element of surprise against them, I wouldn't have total advantage. Don't worry about it though. They'll be easy to deal with tomorrow, I won't underestimate them like Akane did. The Jounin turned to the trees and walked away. He paused for a second and said, "Oh, there's one thing I need you to do." Tazuna's residence, nighttime, several ninja sped through the forest, leaping from tree to tree. Enko was in the center of the formation, carrying Akane's unconscious form. Namikaze was at the front. Jiro took up the rear, watching for any potential threats. The trip took 30 minutes, plus an additional amount of time backtracking to shake any possible followers, making it almost midnight by the time they arrived. Kakashi was already at the door to meet them. Namikaze muttered, "Clear blue skies," to which Kakashi relaxed visibly. All Konoha ninja, Chunin or higher, knew a set of code words that confirmed they were who they said they were. After that code word was used, the next code word on the list would be needed if team members separated. Enko quickly explained who the two add-ons were, and how they factored into the mission. Each of the team moved to perform their tasks. Jiro set up a quick defensive grid around the house using his surviving lightning poles. Tsunami quickly cleared out another room that would serve as a prison cell for Akane. Namikaze filled Kakashi in on the details up to this point. Several minutes later, the members of Team Namikaze finally finished, and settled in for the long night. A new wave of pain shot over the Kunoichi as she returned to the land of the conscious. She quickly pulled herself together and resolved not to say anything. Akane listened, hearing small bits of chatter outside the doorway. She scowled, "Where the hell am I now?" Last she remembered, someone had run into the cave, slammed a senbon into her, and crowed, "Nighty-night." The previous couple days, at least she thought it had been a couple days as she was unconscious most of the time, had been rather unpleasant. Her toenails had been ripped out, she had been beaten several times over, cut with kunai, and threatened to be killed. Often, she had wished the woman had just done the deed and ended it. She frowned, awaiting whatever the interrogation specialist had in store for her next. However, she would soon be surprised. Instead of the Yamakagashi, a male voice sounded, "Hello Akane. Time to talk again." The male blonde-haired ninja was much nicer, but still quite insidious. He tortured her psychologically by being nice to her, offering her a way out of the more brutal sessions with the snake woman. Akane's eyes opened slightly. In front of her, there was a television and what looked to be a picture of Gato on the screen. It was paused. The male's face couldn't be seen, but she was certain that it was the blonde-haired bastard that cut off her arms. She grunted at him in distaste. The male continued, "Glad to see you haven't lost your cheer. Anyway, I figure we can watch a little video of your employer. I must say when I met him, he was smaller than I thought he'd be. He also said some interesting things about you." The blonde pushed play, allowing the video to begin. Gato greeted the mysterious party who had offed one of his best Jounin operatives very warmly. "I assume I'm talking to the ninja who eliminated Akane Reiku. I must say, I'm fairly impressed. She was one of the best in my organization. But, what's happened has happened, and now we need to move on. Regardless of how good she was also a tramp, a stain on my organization. Like a little puppy, she followed me around and did whatever I told her to do. Now, that puppy has been taken out and drowned, much like I should have done years ago. Anyway, my organization provides the ability to obtain some, on-the-side funds. I'm not even asking you to betray your comrades or the bridge builder. Tomorrow, I'd like you to kill this man." An image of Zabuza Momochi replaced Gato on the screen. "I am fully aware you faced him outside the village. However, Zabuza has become a thorn in my side much like that tramp, Akane, was. However, I won't tell you where he is currently located, just in case that you tell your teammates his location. He will most likely be with a young boy by the name of Haku. Haku's image replaced Zabuza's. He broke my arm 5 days ago, and is someone to be wary of. However, I have no doubt that you'll be able to kill him without a problem. He's not nearly as good as Akane. I'm willing to offer you and your partner. The diminutive businessman reappeared with a clever smirk on his face as he paused to say the amount. Double Zabuza's bounty as payment. We'll meet up in a couple days for the transaction. I look forward to working with you in the near future. Oh, one more thing. My top ninja informs me that you might use this recording to find my location, so seals will make this tape unusable in about 5 seconds. The screen faded out. Inside the machine, Kanji turned white, causing the tape's temperature to skyrocket. Moments later, it had partially melted and flowed through the VCR, making both completely unusable. Namikaze looked at Akane's face. As the tape played, Akane's anger had steadily grown at her former employer. She muttered, "I'll kill him. He promised to leave him alone if I went along with everything, and now." Namikaze was silent for a couple seconds, lamenting the fact that Gato, or his best ninja, was smart enough to melt the evidence. He could have shown it to Zabuza and gotten him to abandon his mission. However, he was also somewhat happy, because now he could advance forward. His eyes filled with mirth and his mouth curled into a knowing smirk. "One step behind us, Gato. You thought I would kill Akane Reiku, that was our mission. No, our mission was your head. You underestimated us, underestimated me. And now, you pay for it." He shrugged and said calmly, "I don't know why you'd work for a pile of crap like him. But how about a deal? You give us the location of Gato, and we'll kill him before the sun rises. What do you say, Lightning Monarch?" Akane went silent and closed her eyes. Then, they slowly opened. "Where exactly are we right now?" "On the edge of the village Gato took over. He had a man by the name Kaiza executed here a number of months ago." The cold woman looked thoughtful, and then said with closed eyes, "Gato's base of operations is about 5 miles north of the village. It's hidden near the mouth of a river. It has fewer defenses than my villa, but his number 1 ninja will undoubtedly be there. He's very skilled with Fuinjutsu, so expect anything. I don't know anything more than that, as he kept his best ninja separated." Namikaze muttered, "There wouldn't happen to be other ninja there, would there?" Akane didn't respond. She had slumped in her chair, appearing peaceful for the first time ever. Namikaze put his fingers to the side of her throat. Sure enough, the pulse was there, but beating at a much slower pace. She was asleep. He sighed and said, "Rest easy, Akane. Your time in this world is about done." He slid the door closed as he exited the small room. Outside, Anko rested in one chair while Jiro was looking over some of his equipment. Namikaze leaned against the wall just outside Akane's cell. Both looked at the blonde expectantly. Namikaze filled the two in on what was on the tape and Akane's confession of Gato's location. Anko pulled a kunai out from her trench coat and muttered, "All right then, let's finish her before we head out." Jiro shouted, "What?" She moved towards the doorway, but Namikaze slammed his open hand against the other doorway, preventing the woman from moving any further. Anko glared at the blonde and whispered angrily, "Move, aside, bastard." Namikaze shook his head, "No. We'll keep her alive until we kill Gato. Then, we'll see where that goes." Jiro moved towards Namikaze with urgency, "Namikaze, don't kill that woman. She doesn't deserve to die." Anko brought her arm around in a swift motion, putting the kunai to the Chunin's throat. Jiro managed to avoid flinching, as it would cut his throat if he did. Anko growled at him, "Listen, you little bastard, and listen well. The only reason I'm letting you live is because Namikaze bought your life. I can just as easily end yours and not receive the payment coming. Now, go back to your corner, and shut up." Jiro was shaking all over, because she looked like she'd kill anyone or anything right now. Anko whispered again, "You better keep yourself in check. The Hokage may have put you in charge for your knowledge of future events, but if you betray the Hokage, I'll invent new ways to kill you." Namikaze knew she wasn't kidding. He grinned at her. It was strange, like the younger Kyuubi brat's smile when he assured someone he'll become Hokage. Anko's eyes narrowed as her cheeks turned a bit red. What are you smiling for?" "I'm smiling because you don't have to worry. I'm not going to betray my village. I'd rather die first. I give you my word, and I never go back on my word. That's my nindo." Anko looked surprised at the declaration. He couldn't possibly know that the blonde brat said something like that. He was unconscious in the hospital during that training session with Kakashi's kids. Her mouth closed, and curled into a pleasant smile of her own. She slowly removed the kunai from the snow chunin and said, "I'll hold you to that, brat. Hey, Pain and Thas, get ready. We're going to hit Gato in the dead of the morning." Day 7, 4 a.m., Gato's safe house. It was truly a peaceful night. There was not a single cloud in the sky, allowing the brightest of the blue stars to glimmer in and out of sight every other second. The moon was at its darkest phase, allowing the beautiful night gems to shine even more brightly. In addition to the vastly beautiful night sky, there wasn't the slightest shred of fog in the entire area. There couldn't have been a more perfect or peaceful night. Such a night was rare and a particular treat. However, that should have been the first to tip the guards off. It happened without so much as a peep, as if the shadows had gobbled them up in a single bite. The two guards stood side by side just on the edge of the outdoor lantern light of Gato's mansion. The mansion rested near the river with a small bridge across it. All lights in the building were out except two, an outdoor lantern and one on the third floor. Two pairs of hands snaked out of the night, one covered their mouths and the other wrapped around their throats, pulling them into the blackened shadows. Into the dim light, Namikaze stepped in, already forming hand signs and whispering. The lantern went out with a hiss. Team Namikaze swept across the wooden porch through the narrow opening in the doorway. Anko had already confirmed just outside the range of the guards that there were 3 people in the building. There was a third man on the third floor. All 3 raced up the stairs without a single sound. Jiro and Anko took up positions on either side of the doorway. Namikaze took center and waited 3 seconds. As one, they moved into the room with blades drawn. However, all that waited on the inside was a dark-skinned ninja with a number of seals all over his body. Cigarette smoke puffed out of the side of his mouth as he looked towards a nearby window. He sighed, "Well. 'Bout time you got here, Blondie." Namikaze looked startled. "You were expecting us?" "Course. Shorty doesn't think enough and is overconfident." However, the arrival of 2 teams in waves was a dead giveaway. Gato should be on his way to meet up with his army of bandits. He turned on his feet, facing the 3 ninja for the first time, 3 jounin and 3 genin. Must have been 2 teams, a genin team to protect Gramps and 2 extra jounin for an unknown purpose. Jiro looked at the ground with a small smirk. Not bad. Wave was never a particularly affluent nation, so you realized a genin or chunin team got the crank mission. Gato was known to have major business in Wave, making the mission of the second team assassination. If it was a Kyumo team, then it would be the elimination of Reiku, but since it wasn't, Anko pounded Jiro into the ground, her eye twitching. "Shut up, team. What did I say about talking too much?" Jiro picked himself up and looked at the enemy ninja again. "You said don't." Namikaze spoke up this time. "Jiro, shut up." Killer intent began radiating off him, even though his face was still serious and not angry. The Kyumo ninja whistled. "Not bad, but still nothing compared to us a rank ninja. To think, you 3 beat my senpai." Namikaze just looked blankly at the man. "You have a choice, get out of our way or die." The man tilted his head sideways. "Oh. You think you're skilled enough to kill me? Don't joke around, Blondie. Namikaze lowered his stance in preparation for Kaze Shuinpa, when suddenly he felt like he gained several 100 pounds in a second. Anko fell to a knee and gritted her teeth in pain. Jiro was flattened by the weight. The blonde jounin looked over his shoulder at his team and then back at the Kyumo ninja. The man just shrugged, clearly unaffected by the increase in weight. The building, however, started moaning under the stress. Because of the extra weight, Namikaze couldn't move at high speeds, and thus Kaze Shuinpa was sealed off. Aren't gravity seals a great thing? You didn't notice, did you, that I covered the floors with them, along with a few explosive seals? Once the building collapses, the seals will explode, destroying whatever rubble remains. Namikaze was still able to move somewhat normally because Guy trained him with weights. He flung himself at the jounin with both trench knives already in hand. However, the attacks passed through the man. The image of the dark-skinned jounin flickered for a second, and then reformed. He started clapping. Impressive. Impressive. You must have gone through some serious training to be able to resist my increased gravity seals, Blondie. Tell me, who was your sensei? Sections of the roof started crashing down around the ninjas. One section fell towards Anko, but one of Namikaze's trench knives hit the piece, nailing it to the wall. Namikaze moved away from the bunshin and started talking. Kakashi Hatake, the Kyumo ninja, cut him off. Ah, the copy ninja. I'm surprised that he was one of the ninja present on this mission. Wave is poor, not able to. As Namikaze dragged himself over to his comrades, he said, I'm not finished. Mato Gai, Ebisu, Izumo, Shikamaru Nara, Asuma Sarutobi. He turned to face the missing nin and muttered, and the worst of them all, Orochimaru of the Densetsu no Sannin. The Kyumo ninja's eyes widened in surprise for a second, and then started laughing. Too funny. Orochimaru's betrayal is known far and wide. It is also known just about as much that only one of his students survived, Mitarashi Anko. Namikaze just smirked as he created 3 shadow clones and took up a 4-corner barrier position. The real one chuckled to himself, heh. I've lived a pretty interesting life. I wonder, what was your fate in my world? For wall of chakra rose around where the Namikaze stood, erecting a shield against the collapsing structure. The man shrugged and blew out some more smoke. It's useless. The ground underneath you will collapse, just like the rest of the building. At this moment, the jutsu cut off as the seals crumbled. The rest of the villa collapsed seconds later. After that, explosions rocked the surrounding area as the rubble exploded. The missing nin stumbled across the open field towards the ruins of the destroyed villa. Blondie was nowhere to be seen, but of course there probably wouldn't be much. Some limbs, blood, and other remains would be scattered everywhere due to the massive set of explosions. Of course, he was taking no chances at all. The gravity seals were still in full effect. He could walk through it no problem, as his entire life had been devoted to taijutsu before learning seals. Many of the seals on his body were gravity seals, one put on after the other when the last wasn't enough to affect him. Now, none of those seals were activated. The morning had just begun to break. The area was bathed in dim navy blue light, illuminated by sporadic fires on branches and grass. As he approached the villa, something didn't seem right. The way the debris was scattered seemed strange, as if something had deflected it. Finally, he had arrived at the villa. His explosive seals had done excellent work. No rubble remained. Mist had crept in, and should take care of the fire. Suddenly, his nose sensed something was wrong. There was gasoline in the mist. He bounded backwards, attempting to flee the trap. He managed to clear the mist and it suddenly exploded into a raging firestorm. The shockwave sent him flying into a tree. His back slammed into it and he felt something crack. From the rubble, a section of air shimmered, and then Namikaze's team became visible. Namikaze was standing, but Anko and Jiro were both on their stomachs, Anko with a hand in front of her mouth. Namikaze moved forward at a walking pace, but slower than his usual speed. Arrogant, aren't you, that my jutsu would be unable to hold up against a collapsing base. My jutsu bonds with the foundation and goes several feet down into the ground. So, it bonded with both floors beneath us. The floors will stand until the jutsu dispels, and then I retreat from the newly collapsing floors. The Kyumo-nin stands and spits out his blood and cigarette. Not bad. Using the natural weather to disguise your jutsu. Perfect trap, for one of your rank. However, I'm more durable than you jounin. What's your name, blondie? Namikaze glared at him. Naruto Namikaze, Tokubetsu jounin of Konoha. Name's Jigaku Yama, former jounin of Kyumogakure. And I will be your death. He picked himself up and took a crouching position. He wiped his hand against his bleeding lip and pressed against the ground. Light erupted from the spot, and something metal came out. Anko formed several hand signs, Katan, Gokakyu no Jutsu. Fire release, grand fireball technique. Instantly, the twilight was lit up by a new ball of fire that raced at the Kyumo shinobi. He dodged out of the way, and the tree behind him was turned into a blazing inferno. The light was more than enough to reveal 2 silver sickle blades in each hand. Namikaze pulled out an air pellet and threw it, but the Kyumo ninja sensed the mass of chakra. A moment before it exploded, he deactivated the gravity seals, moved out of the way, and reactivated them. It took only a second to do that. The pellet exploded, washing over the fire, and then transforming the fire into another blazing firestorm. The fire now illuminated the whole field, revealing the entire area covered in various calligraphy and seals. Jigaku began forming several hand signs. The first set were the seals of a summoning, which Namikaze braced himself for. And then, the seals continued until the final seal was played. A white aura of chakra began surrounding the Kyumo ninja, which then traveled down his arms into his tiger seal. Finally, all the chakra was in his finger. He pointed at Namikaze. Suddenly, the chakra shot out like a spear, impacting Namikaze before he could react. The blonde jounin was thrown backwards against the ground and coughed up blood as result. He looked to where it struck him, but there was no injury. However, the white string of aura was still present. For a second, however, he realized he was now glowing white as well. Then, the aura and the white string faded. The jounin picked himself up, and a new pain from his stomach region causing him to double over and start panting. He thought, it can't be. I sense a wave of pure terror from the fox. But he fears nothing. Namikaze looked at Jigaku and growled, "What did you do?" The black jounin smirked, "Now, our fates are connected. Ninpo Kuchios, Shinigami Kumatsudai no Jisei, Ninja Art Summoning, Death God's Altar of Sacrifice. Our souls are connected with the Shinigami. I can call forth a once-living human that the Shinigami owns, and the price for the summoning is the soul of this fight's loser. Whoever loses, will be forever bound to death." And then, the second part of the jutsu activates. As he said this, a violet maw opened up, issuing forth a man dressed in the white robes. If Namikaze didn't know better, he would say the man looked just like, and then the resurrected person's eyes opened, revealing pearl-like eyes without a pupil. Jigaku's smile grew larger. "Naruto Namikaze, meet Hisashi Hyuga. Dead men cannot see, but this one could." The Hyuga branch leader looked forward at Namikaze with mournful eyes. The man may have been alive, but there was no life, no will of fire in his eyes. Namikaze gaped at the resurrected Hisashi, and more killer intent than before began pouring out of the jounin. He growled, "You bastard. You damn bastard. Death is not something one should play with." Jigaku pointed at Namikaze and said as to a dog, "Sick, boy." The Hyuga raced forward at a surprising speed. Jiro and Anko, still incapacitated by the gravity seals, stared with wide eyes. The summon was completely unaffected by the gravity seals. Namikaze hadn't moved as Hisashi raced forward, pulling his arms backward preparing for a Juken strike. Namikaze's dodge was completely unexpected, as he bent over backwards, forming a 90-degree angle with the ground. Hisashi's attack went right over, but he recovered quickly and brought his other hand down at Namikaze's exposed stomach. Namikaze reversed the grip of one of the trench knives and stabbed Hisashi's hand. The Hyuga pulled back his hand and began rubbing along its side. Naruto flipped backwards and landed on his feet with the second trench knife held in front. He muttered, "Anko, Jiro, it's become far too dangerous for you two to be here. Try to flee the area, because I'm about to go wild on them." As confirmation, a sizable amount of chakra exploded from his tenketsu and began swirling around him. Anko grabbed Jiro, and pulled herself to her feet. The two began limping away from the battle zone. Jigu, however, had different plans. He quickly dropped and raised his gravity seals, allowing him a moment to move quickly to cut off their escape. However, Namikaze appeared in front of him, using the same moment to perform Kaze Shuinpa. Mist had crept its way onto the battlefield, as the morning grew lighter and lighter every second. Visibility became poor and Jiro and Anko vanished into the mist. The black Jounin frowned and pulled out a cigarette. Looks like I'll have to kill you first before I can kill those two." He brought one of the sickles slashing downwards to be met with Namikaze's remaining trench knife. Neither weapon moved an inch, causing both ninjas' eyes to narrow. They jumped backwards and began eyeing one another. "Impossible," Namikaze pondered. "My chakra-enhanced blade should have sliced through that weapon like butter. What's going on here?" "Impressive," mused Jigu. "He managed to chip my blade. No one's ever done that to me." Both thought simultaneously, that man's dangerous. "I must be careful." Namikaze hissed, "No more playing around. I have to finish this now. Haven't used this particular style in a long time, but should be appropriate right about now." He ducked a Juken strike to his back and skillfully extracted his trench knife from Hisashi's hand. He spun around the ninja, and brought his arm around to hit Hisashi in the back of the head. However, Hisashi saw it coming, and ducked that attack. Namikaze bounded backwards to prevent a counterattack. The Jounin reversed his grip on the trench knives once again, bringing both blades' tips facing towards the sky. His right hand was fully extended and left hand was next to his head. He concentrated hard, released more and more chakra into the two blades until the chakra swirled around the weapons. Then, it clung to the blades, transforming the trench knives into bases for two short katanas. The blades were made of light blue chakra, and seemed to crackle every couple seconds. Jigu whistled, and both ninja and summon moved in for close-range combat. Namikaze switched stances and prepared to defend. Hisashi threw several strikes aimed at the arms and legs, but Namikaze weaved between each attack, narrowly dodging each one while blocking the sickle attacks with his blades. The black Jounin spat out his cigarette at Namikaze, which he batted away without breaking a stride. But then, he breathed heavily out, sending a mass of white smoke into Namikaze's exposed face. The blonde-haired Jounin blinked as his eyes burned, successfully creating an opening for attack. Hisashi struck Naruto's side as he dodged, and Jigu slashed at his arm. Namikaze leapt backwards again and began blinking to clear his eyes. As soon as the battlefield came into view, the two were attacking again. Namikaze frowned and returned to blocking. He thought, "This is not good, I need to separate them." He threw two kunai at the two ninja, missing both easily. However, the moment of distraction cost Namikaze. Hisashi got too close and said, "Jukenhyo, Gotensu no Inmetsu, 5 points of destruction." The first strike was blinding. It hit just above the stomach. Second strike hit below the left lung, third above the heart, fourth above the right lung, and lastly, below the kidney. Immediately, Namikaze's body started shaking in pain. He kicked out, sending Hizashi all the way across the field. Jigu saw that moment as one of weakness and slashed both blades at Namikaze's head. The sound of metal impacting metal rang out through the forest, causing several birds to fly away at the release of chakra from the impact. Namikaze had brought both blades up to block the attacks. Jigu grinned and kept pressing. "What's the matter, Blondie? Don't you know Hyuga's 5 points technique? It's taught to kill a target in a matter of minutes. It seals the major canals of the chakra circulatory system. Trick is, there's no way to stop it. Your chakra will become the death of you. As you use more of it, it will build up and quickly around the heart, the lungs and the stomach. When there's too much, the circulatory system explodes, liquefying your vital organs. On the other hand, if you stop using chakra, my blades will remove your head from your body. It's over." Namikaze could feel it, the pressure building up. It would be a matter of seconds rather than minutes. He gritted his teeth and prepared to do something he didn't want to do, ever again. He closed his eyes. Water was slowly rising as Namikaze opened his eyes. Once again, he found himself in the sewer of his mind looking at the massive cage before him. Two massive red eyes opened and a gleaming set of teeth were smiling at him. "So, we meet again, brat." Namikaze glared at the Kyubi. Before, he hated the Kyubi for several things, causing the villagers to hate him, attacking the village, and nearly destroying everyone when Naruto lost control after the battle with Pain. The Jounin had a more personal reason for hating him now, for killing his father in this universe. He shouted, "Demon! You deserve nothing less than to be erased from history. I hate you, now and forever, but we have new problems to handle." The Kyubi seemed to chuckle, but Namikaze could sense the truth, the demon was afraid. He taunted, "So, what could possibly terrify the Kyubi no Kitsune, the greatest demon the world has ever known?" The demon stopped laughing and its eyes narrowed. It howled, "Nothing scares me. I am the Kyubi, feared in all lands above all else, and I fear nothing." Namikaze just smirked, "But I sense fear drifting off of you just a short time ago. Your angry raving and false amusement do not deceive me." A short silence permeated for a second, and then was broken. "Could it be, the Shinigami scares you? After all, he ripped you out of your body and sealed your all-powerful self in my younger body, right?" The demon said nothing, and Namikaze began laughing. "I see, you fear death, the end of your existence. You are no better than Gaara, that mindless murderer who seeks to feel alive through the deaths of others. How pathetic." The Kyubi growled and sent killing intent as large and heavy as a mountain crashing down on Namikaze. The Jinchuriki was flattened to the floor. He threw up all over the cell floor. The Kyubi shouted, "Who the hell do you think you are, you little flea? I have lived for thousands of years, and you haven't the years, the experience, or the strength to question me. I fear no one and nothing, least of all the Shinigami." The Kyubi slammed his claws against the cage, attempting to break out. All it did was send shockwaves through the sewer of Namikaze's mind. The Jounin wiped his mouth off and began pulling himself up away from the rising water. It was now about knee-deep, showing how close Namikaze was coming to death. The Kyubi glared at the little blonde man in front of him. "So, you've come for my power again. Tell me, can you resist it like you did before? Or will I succeed in taking over this time? Let's find out." Red chakra burst from the cage like a tsunami, washing over Namikaze. However, the Jounin pushed back the mass with his will, managing to send much of it back, but he couldn't prevent 2 taels worth of chakra from consuming him before it stopped. Namikaze panted and looked at his hands. The red chakra encircled his body like a shield, strengthening and empowering him. Jigu felt Namikaze's strength fail for a second, causing the 2 blades to become that much closer. And then, he sensed chakra bursting inside the jounin. He smirked and thought smugly, that should about do it. Sure enough, Namikaze fell to one knee, but his hands didn't falter for a second. The pain was incredible, but he kept fighting. Jigaku's eyes widened. How are you still able to resist? Your lungs, heart and stomach have been destroyed. Your chakra circulatory system is virtually destroyed. How are you still standing? Namikaze tried to speak, but found it impossible without lungs to take in or expel air. But he smirked, and that's when it happened. Dark red chakra exploded from his body, sending both Jigaku and Hisashi flying several hundred meters away. The red chakra circled around his stomach area and seemed to re-enter his body. Hisashi's Byakugan was still active. If there was any life left in him, he would be wondering what the hell was going on. However, he saw the red chakra encircle Namikaze's liquefied organs and rebuilt them in half a minute. Cells and tissue reattached itself, shattered bone reformed, and then the chakra circulatory system reformed itself in almost as quickly as his organs. Namikaze's eyes turned red and his pupils became slitted. His fingernails grew an inch. 2 tails of chakra burst out of his rear and a mass of killer intent could be felt by Anko and Jiro 2 miles away. The black jounin picked himself up and cracked his wrist back into position. He ordered Hisashi to attack head-on. Namikaze watched as the dead jounin raced forward. One of the tails swung around and struck the Hyuga, impaling him in the stomach. The tail then flung the Hyuga away from both Namikaze and Jigaku. Namikaze burst forward with a previously unknown speed, seemingly unaffected by the gravity seals. His 2 tails picked up the previously thrown kunai and threw them past Jigaku to the edge of the clearing. Then, he withdrew 2 more and threw them backward several hundred meters. The 4 kunai exploded, revealing shadow clones in their places already. Forming the necessary hand signs, Ninpo, Shishienjin. Ninja art, for violet flames battle encampment, 4 walls of purple chakra rose, creating a barrier that trapped Namikaze and Jigaku in together. A second later, the clones activated a secondary barrier, preventing them from being attacked. The 2-tailed Namikaze looked around and said angrily, "Now, your summon won't be able to help you." Anko was still moving as fast as she could to get as far away from the battlefield as possible. However, the gravity seals had covered a wide area. Furthermore, the ground had been booby-trapped with exploding seals set to go off if anyone other than the user stepped on it. Jiro was hanging over her back. He muttered, "What are we doing? We need to go back, or didn't you feel that chakra? Namikaze doesn't stand a chance against something like that, no matter how good you might think he is." Anko just smirked and lied smoothly, "Namikaze has nothing to fear from such chakra. It is his own. That guy has a sort of a bloodline unique to him and him alone." Initially, she had been just as shocked as Jiro over the appearance of such chakra. She had felt it only once before in her life, during the Kyuubi's attack on Konoha. Though she was just a child, the feeling was unmistakable. In all honesty, she didn't buy into Namikaze's story of being Naruto Uzumaki. However, this trip had been forcing her to accept the statement slowly but surely. It was this, though, that confirmed it for her. Namikaze was Naruto Uzumaki. She thought, "I hope you know what you're doing, brat. I don't want to have to put you down." Jigaku looked thoughtfully at Namikaze. His 2 red tails swished back and forth. Jigaku was surprised for a second, and then calmed down. He shouted, "What the hell are you?" Naruto Namikaze, Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, former ANBU captain and current jounin of Konoha. The missing nin flinched, realizing just what kind of situation he had dragged himself into. He was not facing a mid-rank jounin, but a higher-rank ninja, if not higher. All fully grown Jinchuriki were considered at least that. From the looks of it, Namikaze couldn't fully control the Kyuubi's chakra, but even so, partial control was enough. And now, he was trapped in a virtual cell with a demon. He watched as Hisashi brought his palm smashing into the barrier. The summon immediately caught fire and burned to ashes. The ashes, of course, reformed, but the attacks were useless. In order to survive, Jigoku had to kill this two-tailed monster by himself. The Jounin looked around, reaffirming what seals were in place in the barrier. Most of the seals were gravity seals. A few of them were exploding seals, but they were less than useless in a battle against a Jinchuriki or Bijou. There was one seal, however, that might prove to be helpful. However, as his luck went, the seal was just beyond the mass of evil chakra. And then, it was like a hurricane went off inside the barrier. Jigoku blinked, and as soon as his eyes opened again, Namikaze wasn't there. The Jounin dropped the gravity seal and dashed sideways, narrowly avoiding a downward slash with his claw. Jigoku didn't even bother to raise the seals again as he used his speed to move towards where Namikaze was originally. However, the Kyubi container was too fast for him. He appeared in his path, swinging his claw. Jigoku dodged again, defying certain death by a narrow margin again. The Jounin was, however, at his goal. He bit deeply into his hands and slammed the bloody palm on the seal, Chakra Satsu no Fuin, Chakra Diminishing Seal. White light shot out of the seal, latched onto the red chakra, and began ripping it away from Naruto. However, the seal only made things worse, on both sides. Namikaze began howling in pain and surprise. He immediately found himself in the recesses of his mind. He realized immediately that Jigoku was making a mistake, a bad one too. His will was weakened from battling the Kyubi once to prevent the chakra from consuming him. Now, an outside source was calling the chakra to it. He tried to keep the chakra from being released, but it was too late. More chakra swirled around Namikaze and began pulling him towards the Kyubi's cage. The Kyubi watched and grinned ferally, awaiting the chance to finally control his container after so long. Foot by foot, Namikaze lost ground until he was at the edge of the cage. But there he stopped as he attached his foot to the metal bars with his chakra in a showing of his mental strength. The demon slammed against the cage, attempting to get him to slip into the cell. Though Namikaze wobbled, he did not fall. The blonde Jounin's red chakra grew a third tail as the seal petered out. This resulted in even more killer intent. Namikaze didn't seem aware of Jigoku then, because he was shaking his head, trying to fight off the Kyubi's influence. The black ninja raced around, searching for his final backup plan. Moments later, he found it and pressed his bloody hand against the ground on the seal, releasing a wave of chakra and smoke flooded from where he stood. Namikaze finally got himself under control, even though his body felt like it was on fire. The smoke began to clear, when two figures raced out of the cloud. One was Jigoku. However, there were no words for the second. The creature, as no other word Namikaze could use would fit, was a large floating skeleton with gleaming red eyes wearing purple robes, a hood, and carrying a massive scythe. The scythe was still glowing white when it vanished, much like a number of Jigoku's jutsu. Namikaze thought for a second that it was the Shinigami, but realized quickly that the fox would have trembled at its sight. He thought, what the hell is that? Demon, speak to me. From the depths of its cell, the demon's voice reached Namikaze's mind, that is no mere summon. It is death, one of many creatures which control the fates of weak humans like yourselves. You might say it's the underling of the Shinigami. As much as I would enjoy seeing that creature tear your soul from your body, your death would mean mine as well. Death brought his scythe downward, throwing it across the field. Namikaze jumped over the attack just as it slammed into the ground behind him. His middle tail landed on the grip of the scythe. The other two tails bombarded the ground, attempting to hit either Jigoku or Death. Death appeared right next to the scythe, startling Namikaze and causing him to retreat. Jigoku slashed at Namikaze with the scythes, only to have two tails meet the weapons. They wrapped around them and then his arms. The chakra burned horribly, but he didn't scream at all. The middle tail flicked back and forth playfully in front of Jigaku's face. Then the end faced the center of the man's brain like it would pierce through in a second. Death's scythe, however, proved faster as it hit the tail, keeping Jigaku from being injured. The creature raised its hand, calling the scythe back to it. The tail detached and evaporated. Namikaze growled as he backed away from death, letting go of Jigaku at the same time. The chakra tail was not growing back. Jigaku began chuckling, the blade can cut through chakra. Not even the Kyuubi could stand against one of the Shinigami's underlings, let alone the god of death himself. Namikaze began dodging the attacks as well as he could. Unfortunately, death was extremely good with a scythe. Namikaze couldn't quite keep dodging, and took shots to his Kyuubi chakra. Each time it hit, more chakra dispersed. He then came up with a plan that might just work. He retreated backward several hundred paces near the barrier. Death took the opportunity to throw the scythe, which Namikaze ducked. However, his remaining tails weren't as lucky and flew off after being cut cleanly. That was a mistake on Death's part. Namikaze then brought out his own trench knives, slicing apart Death's scythe. The ethereal creature started shaking, and then exploded into smoke. Jigaku's cigarette fell from his mouth in shock. How did? Easy. Your jutsu summoned the spirit of death into that scythe. I then cut the scythe apart with my remaining chakra and my knives here. Now, you're all that's left. Jigaku smirked. Blondie, you don't have any chakra left. I can tell you're barely standing right now. I guess this is the end. He raced at the blonde jounin and jumped at him. Namikaze just smirked in victory. Suiton, Suiro no Jutsu Kaihan, Water Release, Water Prison Jutsu Revised. A watery substance formed rapidly out of the mist and engulfed Jigaku. The jounin looked around. What the? There's no way. Namikaze just chuckled darkly at the ground, then raised his head, revealing the eyes of a crazed murderer. You fell right into my trap. Never believe anything the opposing ninja says. It might be a trap. One of the precepts to being a shinobi, I believe. Now, look where you're at. You're gonna pay dearly for that. The jounin tried squirming inside the prison, only to discover something interesting. Is that fuel I taste? Namikaze gave a pleasant smile. Yep. The water prison is a variation. I converted the mist into a fuel-like substance. It catches fire and explodes really nicely. I've seen. However, this is the first time I've used it in a water prison. Chances are if I light it, well, let's just say I'm not too skilled with fire jutsu, but we might just have a nice fireball afterwards. The black jounin growled, you bastard. If you light it on fire, you'll die too. Suddenly, the ground burst several feet away as Namikaze rose from his hiding spot. No, I won't. You've been fighting a shadow clone for the last couple minutes. He walked to within a couple inches of the barrier, where Hisashi was attacking the barrier ineffectively. Death is too good for one such as yourself. Look at him, Jigaku. Hisashi was still outside the barrier, attacking at the walls constantly. He kept catching fire, turning to ashes, reassembling, and attacking again. Namikaze continued, you've turned him into a mindless killing machine. That's what you will become after the Shinigami takes your soul. He looked around for a second, and came upon the still hot cigarette on the ground. The jounin started chuckling as he fingered the cigarette. Don't you know that these things will kill you? Heh, I guess us ninjas have nothing to fear from using them, as death often comes for us while we are young. He turned to the Kyumonin and flicked the cigarette into the prison. Namikaze quipped with a smile, enjoy it, for it is your last. Jigaku's terror-filled eyes reflected the cigarette as he watched it strike the cell. The cell turned into a blazing inferno, which immediately destroyed the shadow clone. Namikaze listened intently for screaming, but there was none. He sighed and scratched his head. Hizashi stopped beating on the barrier and just stood there. Namikaze looked at him, ignoring the mass of burning fuel. Tears started streaming down his face as the man seemed to smile before collapsing on the ground. For the briefest moment, he thought he saw Hizashi's ghost standing over his dead body. The ghost smiled, and then blew away like the mist. Namikaze sighed as the barrier fell and he started walking away. It would be a while before the ball of fire behind him would stop. However, he had to get to the bridge. Unfortunately, that moment was when fatigue took over and he began falling. His last thoughts before collapsing was, "Damn it, no. I have to save Haku." Tazuna's house, roughly 9 o'clock in the morning. Naruto's team had left about an hour ago, leaving Tsunami and Inari back at the house preparing for when they returned from the bridge. It would soon be completed within the next couple days. Inari had to admit, he never thought the project would have gotten this far. Gato's men would probably come after Naruto's team, but maybe there was hope, just maybe. Tsunami sent Inari to the main room to pick up the remains of the breakfast the two had just shared, and the sound of breaking wood could be heard from the front of the house. Tsunami screamed and Inari looked into the entrance area. 2 thugs with katana were eyeing Tsunami like a pair of lions that had just cornered a gazelle. One had a gray hoodie jacket and the other was shirtless with blue short pants. He ran out to meet them, shouting, "Leave her alone. Mother, get away. I. The gray coat thug looked at the boy with the eyes of a killer. He grinned evilly and said, "Look here, we have a little brat who thinks he can spit fire at us. What do you say we teach him some manners?" After all, Gato said he only needed one hostage. "We'll kill that one and take the woman with us." The larger thug had the same eyes as the first as he spoke up, "Yeah, we can also have a little fun with her on the side. We just need her alive, for now." Inari started trembling and tears streamed down his cheeks when he heard something from the room behind him. His mother's voice spoke up, redirected his attention to the thugs in front, "Don't hurt him. If you do, I'll bite my tongue, and then you won't have a hostage to present to Gato. He'll be displeased with you then. Leave Inari alive, and I'll come peacefully." The 2 bandits looked at the woman speculatively. The larger one prepared to kill Inari anyway, but the gray hoodie bandit sheathed his sword. "She's right. We've had our fun when we killed that boar back there. Be grateful, kid. Your mother just saved your life. Let's go." The older thug and Tsunami began following in his wake. Inari fell to both knees with tears and snot running down his cheeks. Moments after they left, another sound from the room behind him could be heard. He slid the door open to reveal a female ninja, tied up trying to get closer to a kunai on the table. The ninja looked at Inari and said in an icy tone, "Cut me free." Inari looked at her dumbly. She repeated her statement with a bit more anger in her voice, "Cut me free and I'll be able to stop those 2 men." Inari's eyes widened as he grabbed the kunai and began tearing at the ropes. He said through tears, "Who are you?" "I'm Akane Reiku." With the ropes cut, Akane wasted no time grabbing the kunai from the boy's hand with her teeth and racing through the door. Inari followed. Akane appeared in the doorway. She flicked the kunai in the air and shouted the 2's names. They turned, startled, as they recognized her voice. Tsunami also turned, and paled as she saw the ninja was free from her restraints. The lightning monarch raced forward, grabbing the kunai out of the air again. She appeared in front of the 2 of them, slashing their throats with the weapon. The 2 fell like their strings were cut. Tsunami was shaking as the lightning monarch stood overshadowing the 2 bloody bodies. Akane bent over into the woman's face. The kunai was at Tsunami's throat as Akane shouted, "Hey, brat. You want this woman to live? I need a favor. You are going to take me to the bridge right now." Inari stood in the doorway, trembling again. Akane shouted, "I'm waiting," as she pressed the kunai harder against Tsunami's throat. A sliver of blood ran down the woman's throat, convincing Inari it would be in Tsunami's best interest to comply. Inari nodded and began leading the woman in the direction of the bridge. She would take him to Naruto. He'd be able to do something. Gato Villa ruins, 9:10 a.m. It was never a good idea to fall asleep on the field of battle. People have died for less mistakes than that. Even falling asleep on the field of battle you won will have its consequences. Often, ninja travel in groups, or at least any reinforcements will not be too far away. So, Namikaze was extremely lucky that the one who found him unconscious wasn't an enemy. However, she wouldn't allow the brat any leniency as she pulled out her canteen and dumped the whole thing on his glowing face. The jounin floundered on the ground for a second and then shot up, looking for his attacker. What? Where? How? Oh, wait. I must have lost consciousness after that last battle. If I'm still alive, that would mean, he thought as he looked to his attacker. Sure enough, Anko Mitarashi stood over him looking completely innocent. Namikaze narrowed his eyes, "Stop giving me that innocent look. Oh. It's pissing me off. Besides, you are a lot of things, but not innocent. How long was I out? No, rather what time is it now? About 9 a.m. You've been out for 3 hours. Jiro and I got worried when you didn't come looking for us, so we came back to see. Don't next time. I'd rather not have all my comrades dying to one ninja." Wait. Did you say 9 a.m.? She looked a bit surprised and nodded. The jounin lifted himself up and spoke hastily, "We've got to get to that bridge. Now." Anko was confused, but that was normal when dealing with Naruto. She just went to get Jiro and the three were off, racing for the bridge as fast as they could go. The bridge, 9:10 a.m., Kakashi's eyes widened as he realized just who Zabuza would attack, the bridge builder. Sakura stood with a kunai in hand, waiting for Kakashi or Sasuke or Naruto to return from their battles. Suddenly, she felt a small presence behind her, forcing her to turn. Sure enough, the demon Zabuza was there bringing his Zanbato in a downward slash. Kakashi appeared in his way. He pushed Sakura and Tazuna away, but that left him exposed. The genin heard the sound of cutting flesh, and she screamed loudly. Zabuza just laughed, "Look at her," the genjutsu genin squealing. "She can't be a ninja." Those like her were quickly weeded out of Bloody Mist Academy's roster, permanently. On another note, you got sloppy Kakashi. Next time, you won't even sense my blade slice through your spine. Kakashi just watched the jounin carefully as he disappeared. Inside his mask, however, he smirked. It was at this moment that Naruto watched Sasuke breathe his last on the bridge. Haku spoke softly, "Is this the first time you've seen a comrade die?" He was a true shinobi, and he died as a true shinobi. Naruto hissed, "Shut up. Sasuke, I hated you with every ounce of my being. But you were almost, like a brother to me. You'll pay for this." Steam rose from Naruto, and then red chakra burst forth, surrounding Naruto and Sasuke in an upward spiral of red chakra. The top ice mirror shattered at the force of the chakra that hit it. All Naruto's wounds began healing as the Kyuubi chakra took over. He looked at Haku and growled, "I'm going to destroy you." Team Namikaze had just exited the forest and were on the edge of a dock still a couple of miles from the bridge. Naruto's Kyuubi chakra could be felt even from where they stood. Namikaze had never really known what the Kyuubi chakra would feel to a bystander, as it was coursing through his veins instead of someone else's. He paused for a second to get a feel for it. "It's terrible, foul. Is that, truly what runs through my veins each time I use it? This is very bad. It means that Haku is already engaging Naruto in battle." Jiro frowned and looked at Namikaze. He knew that feeling from just 3 hours ago, and someone else was giving off that kind of chakra? Granted, Namikaze's chakra was much more feral, intoxicating, evil he'd say. But it was still the same. Anko didn't even think about it. This only just confirmed the truth of two Naruto Uzumaki in one world. All three nodded, and vanished from their spots in renewed effort to make it on time. Naruto's speed increased several-fold as a result of the infusion of the Kyuubi's chakra. Haku never stood a chance as he was outmaneuvered in less than a minute. The demon ice mirrors shattered as one after Naruto shattered Haku's mask. Meanwhile, Kakashi withdrew his scroll while he contemplated Naruto. Has the seal broken? No. The seal loosened the slightest bit and a small glimmer of the demon slipped through. If so, then we might still have a chance, just maybe. He began unwinding and spinning the scroll, giving his sealed summons contact with the air. As he swirled it, the dogs sniffed at the air from inside the seal and knew immediately where Zabuza stood. Kakashi said, "Zabuza, I hate to spoil your fun, but we're both busy men. Let's bring this to a close right now, what do you say?" The scroll ended up on top of the Jounin's hand in the tiger hand sign. Zabuza accepted as Kakashi formed the needed hand signs for the summoning, Ninpo, Kuchios. Doton, Tsuga no Jutsu, Ninja Art, Summoning. Earth Release, Fanged Pursuit Jutsu. For several seconds, nothing happened. Suddenly, several dogs burst from the ground, clamping their jaws down on Zabuza's shoulder, arms and legs. Sakura and Kakashi could hear the demon's shout of pain. Kakashi relaxed his grip on the scroll and rose, looking right into the mist where Zabuza was now standing. That was a summoning jutsu. Meet my ninja hounds, with just one word, they'll tear you apart. You reached too far, Zabuza. You failed to kill the Mizukage and attempted a coup d'état. Now, you want to do it again. To do that though, you needed money, so you became a hired thug for a swine like Gato. He lowered his head as a memory of the previous night came to memory. Naruto Namikaze asked, no, he begged for Kakashi to spare Zabuza and the hunter ninja should they engage them in battle. Kakashi told him he would if they weren't too dangerous to keep alive. However, now Kakashi couldn't in good faith let Zabuza live. The man had nearly succeeded in killing Tazuna. He thought, forgive me, Naruto. He said, enough talk, time to die. This time, though, I won't use Sharingan or someone else's copied tricks. It's time I introduced you to my own jutsu. He made 3 quick hand signs and formed Raikiri in his right hand. Kakashi continued, I won't allow you to kill Tazuna. He's a brave man and the hope of this nation. Killing him would doom the nation. Furthermore, you don't care. You're right. I don't give a damn. I have dreams too. But to have a dream, you need a future, something you don't have. Ah, I see it now. The mist has cleared and your death is certain. Still a long way from the bridge, Namikaze winced at the appearance of Kakashi's chakra. He said urgently, I'm going ahead. Take the far end of the bridge and wait for my signal. The two nodded as Naruto Namikaze vanished from the air in front. Akane moved forward through the mist towards the bridge. She stopped for a second at the appearance of a huge chakra and said, tell me where it is, and if you lie, I'll come back and kill you. Inari fought to stop trembling as he pointed into the mist, the bridge is a mile that way. The woman disappeared, leaving him behind. Kakashi darted forward with his lightning blade. He was ready to impale Zabuza and end this whole thing when something appeared in his way. Everyone who was present stared in shock. Namikaze appeared on the railing, staring in shock as Kakashi's blade had pierced Haku. Namikaze's mind was spinning, with nothing making sense anymore. He whispered, no. Haku coughed and held on hard to the Jounin's arm. He tried to talk, but a gurgling, za-bu. Za was all that could be heard. It broke Namikaze's heart to hear the dying throbs of the tool's voice again. Kakashi then understood why Namikaze wanted Zabuza alive. He didn't really care about Zabuza, but rather Haku and his survival. His future knowledge allowed him to know that this was probably Haku's original fate. He dropped his head in sadness and realization. Zabuza started laughing and brought the Zanbato down to finish off Kakashi. Namikaze, however, blocked the blade with just one hand. He muttered, "Don't even think about that, right now." He just stood there with the trench knife grinding against Zabuza's sword. Naruto ran out of the mist in time to see Namikaze holding the blade up. Sakura ran over to Sasuke after seeing Naruto's downtrodden expression. Kakashi leapt over Namikaze behind Zabuza and slashed at the demon's head. Zabuza ducked and swung the blade around, attempting to decapitate Kakashi. Kakashi merely backhanded the jounin, sending his blade flying several feet away. Zabuza ran back at the jounin, clearly losing it at this point. Namikaze and Kakashi slammed kunai into the jounin's arms, rendering them useless. It was at this point that taunting applause could be heard on the other side of the bridge. Well. Zabuza, demon of Kirigakure, how you have fallen. Look at yourself. You seem as much like a demon as a wet kitten. Not that it matters, as I was planning on killing you after this mission. Gato stood about 100 feet off surrounded by goons of all sizes. Namikaze's glare found a new target. This is your fault, Gato, all of it. Ah, looks like you survived the encounter with my number one. Did he die? I almost feel regret for that, but his expenses were also too high to keep around too long. Kakashi looked between Gato and Zabuza. The demon muttered, looks like our fight is over, Kakashi. You win. Yeah, it looks that way. Gato stepped forward to get a closer look. In the middle of the bridge, Haku lay with a hole through his chest. Ah yes. I still owe this one for breaking my arm. He brought his foot back and slammed it into the corpse as hard as he could. Zabuza's and Namikaze's eyes narrowed. Tears filled Namikaze's eyes. However, no one paid attention to him. Naruto yelled at Zabuza, look at him, Zabuza. He died for you. He didn't have the chance to live his own dreams. Shut up, brat. You don't know what you're saying. Everyone turned to the demon. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he said, your words cut deep, deeper than any kunai. His heart was breaking as he fought you. He felt pain, and damn it, now I feel the same. I can't let it end like this. He tore at the bandages around his mouth, revealing shark-like teeth and a sad smile. Akane walked forward from the mist. She walked past the bridge builder, Sakura, Sasuke, and into the midst of Zabuza, Kakashi, Namikaze and Naruto. Namikaze looked at her with surprise, you. Enko was right. I should have killed you when I had the chance. Akane spoke through the kunai, get the hell lost, brat. Akane looked to the demon and continued, Zabuza-sama. I have returned. I don't think I can be much use for you this time, but... She paused as she saw Namikaze too close to Zabuza. She gritted her teeth on the kunai, leaving imprints on the weapon. Bastard, I'll kill you for what you've done to Akane-san. Stop. I release you from the debt you owe me. Brat, give me your kunai. Akane looked surprised, and then fell to one knee. She muttered, at your command. Zabuza-sama. Meanwhile, Naruto nodded as he threw the blade in the air. Namikaze pulsed his chakra, signaling Anko and Jiro to begin their attack at the same time. Both Namikaze and Zabuza raced forward. Anko and Jiro were under the bridge, awaiting Namikaze's signal, attached to the bottom by chakra. At the signal, they ran to each side and flipped up over the railing. The boat that carried the ninja exploded in a bright yellow fireball as the exploding tags went off. Anko landed and threw several sanbon in a wave. Each one was coated in different poisons. Jiro sent lightning jutsu one after the other into the mass of thugs. Both the demon and the blonde wanted the same thing, Gato's head. The thugs fell in waves, though a few fought back. Zabuza's attacks were effective for only having a kunai in his mouth, but he couldn't defend well and was skewered several times with blades. Gato, however, never stood a chance with 3 jounin and a chunin attacking as one. Together, Zabuza and Namikaze slammed their kunai on opposite sides of Gato's head, cleanly decapitating the businessman. Namikaze grabbed the head out of the air and blocked another attack with the weapon in hand. He turned to the survivors and began killing his way through them. In a matter of a few minutes, it was all over. The thugs were either dead or dying, most due to poison Senbon. Zabuza stood over Haku's corpse and lamented that he couldn't join the sweet boy in where he was going. The jounin then collapsed on his stomach, spending the last few moments lamenting the death of Haku. Kakashi just commented that perhaps he would be going there, as the snow began to fall. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. Guys, make sure to help the author by visiting the link in the description. This is Fox Sage, and I'm signing off.